We begin our journey in the beautifully decorated West End, which was the original medieval main entrance. The West End window shows scenes from both the Old and the New Testament. The construction of Norwich Cathedral began in 1096 under the guidance of Herbert de Losinga, the first Bishop of Norwich. The original cathedral was completed in 1145. The Romanesque arches were a classic architectural choice of the Normans. One of the first things you'll notice upon stepping inside the cathedral is the incredible Gothic ceiling. The original roof was made of wood. However, damage caused by multiple fires led to the decision for stone vaults to be installed in the 15th century, adorned with heavy Gothic fluting. Two Saxon churches were demolished to make room for the cathedral. Here you can see this column, along with its parallel one on the opposite side of the nave, has a spiral design. This is to indicate where the original altar was. This column was originally of spiral design, but had been covered up by newer stone. This work would have been carried out pre-1629 if the graffiti on the newer stone is accurate. We now arrive at the choir and the crossing. This area was badly damaged in the 17th century by a Puritan mob who destroyed all Roman Catholic symbols within the cathedral. Miraculously, the 15th century oak stalls still survive to this day. The cream-coloured stone you see is limestone from Caen in France, imported by the Normans at great cost, due to the fact that there was not sufficient stone in East Anglia. Here, in the centre of the cathedral, we look up to see the base of a grand stone spire, constructed in the 15th century. The original spire was made of wood and unfortunately was struck by lightning in 1169, only 23 months after its completion. In the north transept lies the monument of Bishop John Pelham, who died in 1894. The south transept remains traditionally Norman, as you can see from the Romanesque half-crescent arches. One of my favourite parts of Norwich Cathedral is the tomb of Sir Thomas Erpingham. A Norfolk local from the nearby village of Erpingham, Thomas was the commander of King Henry V's longbowmen at the Battle of Agincourt in 1415. Erpingham's career as a soldier led him to serve in France, Spain, Prussia and the Holy Land, a military career spanning almost 50 years. Above Erpingham's tomb is a window made from fragmented medieval stained glass. Original medieval stained glass is very rare. Sometimes it can be rather easy to tell if the stained glass is not from the medieval period. Norwich Cathedral is named the Holy Trinity. These are called the Trinity windows. Just beyond Erpingham's tomb is an arch with a small spiral staircase leading up to the treasury. During the medieval period, this room would have held religious artifacts for people to come and see. Now, the room holds gold and silver artifacts. However, the real treasures are on the upper floors. Unfortunately, these are not open to the public. This is the bishop's seat, a stone staircase leading to a simple wooden chair. The wooden chair is supposed to represent the bishop being a humble man. Yes. very humble. Here, at the east end, you find the presbytery, a hugely ornate section of the cathedral where the Gothic architecture is shown off in all its glory, mixed with the earlier Romanesque design. On the northern part of the east end lies the Jesus Chapel, a very Norman-influenced area complete with an original Norman altar slab. This is also the best room to see the heavily faded medieval paintwork. Throughout the medieval age, religious buildings such as cathedrals would have been completely covered in paint, and would be very striking to the eye. One of the most popular colours to be used would have been a shade of red called madder, which was created locally in Norwich at Madder Market. The entire ceiling of the ambulatory may have been painted gold, with red crisscrosses complete with flowery artwork. These crisscrossed arches are quite popular in Norfolk. The same Norman arches can be seen on the front entrance of Acre Priory, a few miles away from Norwich. This is the back of the bishop's seat at the ambulatory. This small shelf is where the religious relics used to be on show, however they were moved to the treasury for safekeeping after a riot in 1272. At the furthest point of the east end, we can find the Chapel of St Saviour, dedicated to the Royal Norfolk Regiment and the Royal Anglian Regiment. This highly ornate chapel was built in the 20th century and has plaques commemorating where both regiments had fought and memorials of fallen soldiers. This effigy was once thought to be that of the first Bishop of Norwich, but is now considered to be that of St Felix, who first brought Christianity to East Anglia. As we make our way round the east end, we come to St Luke's Chapel, the home of a very intricately carved stone font. At Bishop Goldwell's tomb, you can see how well some of the medieval paintwork has been maintained, including the madder red pigment. Bishop Goldwell was responsible for the beginning of the grand scheme of the cathedral's stone vaulted ceiling. Unfortunately, some of the medieval artwork has faded so much over time that the scenes that it used to depict are no longer recognisable. Here we can see a damaged Norman arch showing through, covered in a layer of newer stonework. Stepping out of the cathedral, we arrive at the highly decorated medieval cloisters, which have a heavily Gothic influence in design. The natural square inside the cloisters was used as a garden for growing flowers and herbs. Monks who attended cathedrals and abbeys were keen farmers and gardeners, as well as being men of the cloth. The cloisters at Norwich Cathedral are the second largest in England, the largest being at Salisbury. While these cloisters were being built, the Black Death broke out and devastated the population of Norwich. The impact of the plague is shown in the cloister's construction, where there is a sudden change in design of the stone tracery from the rounded Norman arches to Gothic pointed arches. This is due to the construction of the cloisters being put on hold in 1349 once the plague broke out in England, and then the work was continued many years later when the later Gothic perpendicular design was popular. During the medieval period, monks would either walk deep in thought around the cloisters or sit and read. There were many small storage rooms which were used for storing books for the monks to read, some of which are still maintained with wooden doors. Others have been sealed up. The cathedral boasts over 1,000 roof bosses, the majority of which can be seen in the cloisters. The most famous of these is the Green Man, who can be seen peeking through golden leaves. During the Victorian period, much of the cathedral's floors were removed to lay pipes. Many stone slabs were tombstones, however, most of these were either destroyed or misplaced when putting the floors back. Despite Norwich Cathedral being known as very complete, the walls still bear scars of violent times in its past. The peasants' riot in 1272 led to the original wooden cloister's roof being torched, causing a fire to burn throughout the cloister halls. The blackened stone can still be seen to this day. 3 out of 4 of the cloister halls have a second-level passageway above them, with windows and a roof. However, the passageway next to the cathedral never received a new roof after the fires. Moving outside of the East End, where the chapel of St Saviour currently stands, you can see where the original medieval East End used to be before it was demolished due to extensive damage. Here is a particularly good example of the changes in architectural design. A mix of Norman arches, Gothic patternwork, modern stonework, and brick. This heavily fire-damaged archway is a stark reminder of how extensive the fires were in the cathedral premises, caused by the riots. Outside the East End you can also see the grave of Edith Cavell, a nurse during World War I and a national heroine. Just outside the south end, you will notice buildings in ruin. This is due to the destruction of the monastic buildings during the dissolution of the monasteries between 1536 and 1541. Norwich Cathedral survived miraculously well throughout the destruction, with the main two casualties being the refectory and the infirmary, which were connected to the southern part of the cloisters. You can still see the remnants of columns and arches where these buildings once stood. The main visitor's entrance is through the arch of a ruined monastic building dating back to the 12th century. I hope you've enjoyed the tour of Norwich Cathedral and its history. I personally recommend my video about the origins of Norwich as a city, but for now, thanks for watching.